I want to say the last 4 or 5 weeks for Florida State have been the best in the Norvell. Actually, not even just the Norvell tenure, the best in the last 4 or 5 years in terms of not having turnovers and in terms of penalties. Miami killed themselves with penalties, especially in the beginning, being overly aggressive. And I think that comes from a mentality of where you underestimate your opponent and you're trying to knock them out as opposed to just trying to play the game.
They went for weeks and weeks and weeks, especially in that 3-game winning streak. And of course, the UMass game, I'll set that aside. That's just a different deal. But Syracuse has played some decent football this year, and they beat North Carolina, where Jayshon Corbin was basically getting, 10 or 12 carries and running for 100 and 120 yards, like 10 yards per carry. And then they hit some good defenses. Clemson, NC State, and the rushing attack just went into the tank. They ran it pretty well against Miami. Your thoughts about being able to move people off the line and get the ground game going?
I mean, I think I told people that's where Miami was weakest at. Which is ironic because they recruited fairly well on the D line, but they're pretty good at the pass. Going up against the pass rush. Excuse me, their linebackers are lacking, and one guy that they'll say they don't miss, but Bradley Jennings Jr., whose father played at Florida State. He would have been a better inside presence against this kind of offense they face. There were a couple games there where Miami's starting inside linebacker, he played 70 snaps and only had 4 tackles. That's not optimal. That's not what you want. You got to have a guy that's going downhill and striking, and they just don't. They're lacking that, which is ironic when you think about Miami and how good they've been in the past and these things. But I like the matchup. One thing that our offensive line has done very well, and people have been complaining about Florida State's offensive line since 2017, really probably 2015 if you really go back to it. You just had probably the best running back in Florida State history, in Dalvin Cook, around during that time. But they've always done a good job of run blocking. It's pass blocking where they haven't done a good job of. So when you put the RPO and you center it around the quarterback, you're really helping your offensive line be better. And I think what's really overlooked is how well they've been in the passing game in this game. Dylan Gabriel, the transfer from Notre Dame, I think he had like an 86.6% pass blocking grade with Pro Football Focus. That's unheard of. We haven't had that kind of performance in quite some time. And I know there's been some, and he's dealing with injuries. And there's been some games when he's been on point, some games when he's not. But it just shows FSU fans. So all FSU Nation. So this is where you got to pay attention. Those who are frustrated and asked for the coaches to be fired, you were right. And this game proved that you were right. Those who have had faith and said, this is our coach and we want to do this, you were right. And this game proves you were right. So you're going to say, how can you say both are right? It's because it's a damn standard and it's an expectation and you know what you have. You don't have a national championship contender. We understand that. You don't have the greatest quarterback in the world. We understand that. You don't have a lot of things that you would like to have to be on, like in that in an old school top 10. I don't know what the hell's going on in college football right now, just the way things are panning out. But you do have enough to beat Jacksonville State. You do have enough to beat the, I would say, the mid-tier to lesser-tier teams in the ACC, which should put you at 4th in a good ACC year. But in a year where Clemson's down and really nobody is who we thought they were, this was a year to steal momentum. So people who are frustrated, you are right to be frustrated. People who are saying give them time, you're right to say that. But let's not keep our eyes off the prize. The goal is to win championships. David, our AD said 6-6 is not good enough, and that's the best that we can finish this year. But if again 6-6 is not good enough, also. But if we go 6-6 this year and go to a bowl game, it could get spooky in recruiting, and it could get spooky with the momentum going into next year. And the word that I absolutely abhor, buy-in. But buy-in means winning. So if you go 6-6. People are going to want to do more because they feel like you're winning. So I think you can't do it without this game.